She said that I had either Cushing's disease, Addison's disease, or a tumor on my adrenal glands. And I was 295 pounds at the time. And she diagnosed me because I had literally purple stretch marks on my body. And I said, "How do you get rid of this? How do you get rid of this or this tumor on my adrenal gland?" She says, "We have to cut your back open and take out a rib and get into your adrenal gland and take off the what you call it if it's on tumor, if it's on my adrenal gland." And I was like, "That's not happening." And that's actually the last time I saw a doctor. I mean, formally for that. I've seen doctors ever since then. But when I was told that somebody had to cut my back open. And then I think I even had hemorrhoids. I was having a whole bunch of issues, and all very invasive issues. And I just didn't want that. I thought if somebody cuts into me, then that's the end of me. My strength will be gone. I will become weaker. And I didn't like that feeling. It made me very insecure as a child, as a growing adult, I guess you could say.
Welcome back to another episode of the Plant Fueled Podcast. I'm Callum, your guide on this journey through the vibrant world of vegan living. Today, we're taking a slightly different path, one that's as sweet as it is inspiring, as we sit down with Rey Ortega, affectionately known around the globe as the Mad Cookie Man. Rey's story is nothing short of remarkable. Growing up, he faced a myriad of health issues that conventional medicine struggled to address effectively. Unwilling to accept his fate, Rey embarked on a journey of self-discovery and healing, diving into research and taking his health into his own hands. What he found was life-changing. By modifying his diet and cutting out certain foods, he not only reclaimed his health, but also set the foundations for what would become a thriving empire, all starting with, yes, you guessed it, cookies. But Rey's story isn't just about cookies, it's a testament to the power of personal responsibility, the importance of nutrition, and the incredible impact our food choices have on our health and well-being. His cookie business exploded, leading to millions of sales and branching out into various other ventures, proving that with the right mindset and a dash of creativity, anything is possible. In this episode, Rey shares ups and downs of his journey. From his early struggles with health to the heights of business success. We'll dive into secrets behind the delectable creations, the challenges he faced along the way, and his vision for the future. Rey Ortega is a true pioneer, a man who proves that sometimes the sweetest victories come from the most unexpected places. Before we dive in, a small request. While our listener base continues to grow, it seems that the number of star ratings and reviews hasn't quite caught up. If you find value in what we're doing here, please consider leaving a review or a rating on your preferred platform. It's a small gesture that means a lot to me. It also helps new listeners to find the podcast, spread the message further, and enables us to continue bringing you the content and the guests that inspires, educates, and empowers us all. Thank you so much for your support, love, and being part of this journey with us. Remember, every small change contributes to a larger impact. Peace and plants. Just outside London, a place called Essex is where I'm originally from.
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's not too bad, but it's very cold compared to where I am now.
Isn't that where the werewolves are? The werewolves? Aren't the werewolves in Essex?
To be fair, I've heard something like that, so it may be a thing. I know there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do with witches there.
Yeah, well, that's maybe what it is. It's the witches. And warlocks, maybe.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like folklore, especially in England. It's just
right.
It's kind of everywhere.
Funny, huh? It's funny how we think of certain things of our countries.
Yeah, it's weird though, because like when you go to different countries, like everybody kind of has near enough the same, like little folklores, but there's always different things going along with them.
It's really interesting.
So, Rey, I've been researching you for quite a few weeks now, and I think it's safe to say you have quite an impressive portfolio which spans over years upon years upon years. However, once you take that portfolio away, strip away all your businesses, your books, the cookies, who are you? Like, what do I need to know about you to know about who you are now as a man sitting before me today?
Oh, wow. Gosh, wow. That is a really interesting question. I've been, I'm I think I'm a pretty simple person for the most part who likes to I like to dabble in a lot of things. I'm a very my brain is very constructed in the way that the curious child has never left me. So I think I'm a super curious person as an adult. It probably now that I've got enough money to do whatever I want. Almost, I'm not rich by any means, but for the most part, if I find something interesting enough that I want to do or try, then or take things apart or buy something that I want to try. I'm more of a risk taker by far. I am in. If you stripped everything away, I am a risk taking, curious man. That's what I am, and I think that's what goes with me. And this is how I kind of became vegan. I think it's because I was super curious about the digestive system and the endocrine system on how the functions of this is what made me vegan was medical books. I was super fascinated over just the human body. I mean, at a very young age, you're talking at 13 years old, I was super curious. And I think that I have taken it along with me since I've discovered this power within myself of learning. After I became vegan, it just got worse. Meaning worse in a good way, meaning I needed to know more and who I was, because I think that I was suffering as a kid, I really didn't get to know myself so much because I was sick all the time. So I think when you're sick as a kid, you have a tendency of not worrying about yourself so much, so to speak, meaning I don't think I paid close enough attention to my personal personality because I was always not feeling well. So I think so when your body is not feeling well, I think you have a tendency of just of not realizing your potential. I think once I became vegan, my potential just blew the doors off. That was like, wow. I mean, I really just went absolutely crazy when I changed my diet, because it freed up my brain, freed up my health. Then I was able to think more clear. Does that answer your question? Does that answer? I'm not sure. I think so.
It really does. So yeah, as you said, you were a very ill kid.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of conditions, or was it just kind of like your usual flu, cold, or was it just something a bit more serious?
Oh no. Yes. No. I think that for all of us as humans, when we start to not feel well, I think because society at this point has come so used to sicknesses, and that's the saddest part. That the saddest part is the acceptance of the sickness, and this is where all the pharmaceuticals were built on, and that is the suffering of people. And so that's why I go by the Mad Cookie Man, because when I started to understand a little bit more of society and how it was treating us as humans, instead of trying to say, hey, this could be the problem or that could be the problem, they're here like, hey, here's a pill, or you're going to have to get something cut out of your body. So I was pretty much like, I didn't make any sense to me, because I had been reading these medical books, and it just kind of dawned on me, like, how is it that our creator made this huge of a mistake? You know what I mean? I just didn't understand within myself why these humans were just completely a disaster, so to speak. And so I grew up with serious depression. I was sick, the stomach problems galore. I had what they call attention deficit. I could not pay attention to things. I was hyperactive. I actually got prescribed some hyperactive Ritalin type of drug to keep me from going. I was just hyperactive, and the reason why I find out later on is because when I started reading the books, my endocrine system, my adrenaline was constantly on go because I was so unhealthy in the foods that I was eating, and this was my thing. My thing was, why is my endocrine system so bad? What is happening that's making me hyper? So that's why, I think the weirdest thing, and I always look back at this, why as a kid did I decided to take it upon myself to self-diagnose? You know what I mean? Such a difficult thing. You know, there is no layman's terms. They don't make little kid books that describe the digestive system in detail. You know, so that was one of the things. That's why when I got a hold of these books, they were all black and white, and I learned a lot about the human anatomy, which I always thought was. I always think that's funny as a kid because you learn about yourself and you learn about women too, and you learn about all the diseases that are associated. And I think that probably made me even more paranoid as a person. Like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at these books. They may have been black and white, and their descriptions were so I could not understand them as a 13-year-old, 12-year-old kid. So I got a set of new books that were more in layman's terms, and that's really what started my journey. Because my pain is really what started my journey, I should say.
So it's weird that I totally understand where you're coming from with that, because obviously you're just like, when you're ill, you're just prescribed a medicine or a drug to just fix it witithout looking at the root of the cause. And
Right.
unless you actually go out and look for yourself or find a specialist, which sometimes can cost thousands upon thousands, that sometimes you're not just going to get that cure, or you're not going to know how to fix the situation. You're given just, for someone with like high cholesterol, for instance, they're like,
Yeah.
take a statin, when
Right.
you could eat healthier, and it could start reversing everything. And it's just we're in a day and age today where it is very much we're trying to find the easiest fix instead of trying to actually fix the solution.
And you know why that is, don't you? It's because no doctor has the nerve to tell you what is really wrong with you, because they don't want to lose a customer. They want to gain money from the pharmaceutical companies and give out as many drugs as they can so they can get the kickbacks. It's pretty simple. And believe me, when I started to understand more about that, I really just lost my mind. I just a whole new me was evolving to try to understand what was going on in this world with humans, that we were so money hungry that we would let people suffer. And anytime anyone suffered, we would go immediately to the doctor and assume that they would know, when they don't. Doctors don't know. I'd say I'm 99% of doctors don't even have nutrition training. I don't know if you knew that. But
Yeah, it's a big thing. I think in their 7 to 8 years of training, they normally get about 7 hours nutrition training
is that
in
ridiculous?
7 years, which is wild. And then sometimes giving out nutritional advice, which obviously with 7 hours, you shouldn't be able. That's basically a Google search.
Right. And what's funny is that what they'll say, just cut back. They will never say cut out. Because you know what? If you go into a doctor's office and they tell you got to stop eating meat, got to stop eating cheese, you got to stop eating dairy, all this other crap, I can guarantee you that person will never be back. because nobody wants their personal choice taken away from them. No, none. I have discovered that through the years. It's been 30 years for me. How long has it been for you?
I think it's going on 8 years now. So I don't actually have a vegan birthday like many people do. I just kind of did that switch and didn't really think about it.
I love it.
And then when people ask, I'm like, I know it was sometime between this and this, so I've kind of put in a rough date. So I think it's around 8 years, maybe less, to be fair, but it could also be more.
Right.
Did you say it was 30 years that you said?
30. It's been 30 years. My vegan birthday is in April. Yeah. So, and it's funny is I kept track of it only because you never know if you're going to go back. But I never went back. As soon as I started to figure out not just what it was doing for myself, I lost 95 pounds in total. Between but when I started a bakery, I gained about 35 back because I had deprived myself of baked goods for about 7 years. I was literally not eating any eggs or butter or dairy or anything with eggs in it, which were my favorite. That's why maybe I was kind of like, why am I so obsessed with cookies? I have been obsessed with cookies since I was a child anyway. And then so when I got it taken away from me, I saw the opportunity to do something and to teach people. I think that cool thing I like about what I do is that you can teach people by giving them something that they love, that is familiar to them. And I think they're more or less, they can get on a better path that way. Like, hey, your dessert isn't taken away from you. Hey, there's cookies out there. And then I think it just one thing leads to another. I consider myself a seed planter of a sort. I like to plant the seeds.
That's interesting. Obviously, when you went 30 years ago, there definitely wasn't the options that there are now either. I'm guessing, was it a very whole foods kind of like plant-based kind of like diet you were doing back there? How did it start? Or was it just kind of like you switched straight away, or were you cutting out bits bit by bit?
Well, interestingly enough, when I decided to cut it all off, I stopped eating eggs when I was 16 because I knew there was something happening. I thought, I'm getting all these headaches all the time. So as I just started skimming the books a little bit more, and then I stopped eating eggs at 16. But so when I finally started reading about it, like, oh my gosh, my pituitary gland was swelling, and my digestive system wasn't digesting food correctly. There was just so many things that were pointing to the direction of the eggs, salmonella, the bacteria, the cholesterol, and then it just started making sense. And then by the time about 7 years later, which was about 22, I realized I had to stop eating the dairy. But in between, I was eating chicken and I think I was eating ribs and I was still eating red meat up until I became somewhere closer to being vegan. But little did I know I was taking the steps at 16 to be vegan. I was you have to keep in mind that culturally it was not a thing to do. I was not allowed. If I didn't eat what was on my plate, then I would have not have eaten at all, which may have been a good thing too when I think about it. You know what I mean? I said that to myself the other day. I thought, I keep saying that if I didn't eat on my plate, what was on my plate, then I think maybe that would have been better. Maybe it would have been better if I had not. I gained 90. I was like a big kid in high school. I was about 200 in high school, and I was just a very big kid, muscular kind of kid. I lost the muscles now because, not all of them, but I have some strength still, but I don't think definitely as strong as I used to be. But I just don't work out. But the funny thing is, when I became vegetarian, I lost 60 pounds. And then when I became vegan, another 35 came off. And I didn't even have to lift a finger. So as soon as I started becoming vegetarian, I started eating just top ramen, toast, and oatmeal for 6 months. It was every day. I knew I had to pick something that I loved. And those are the things that I loved. So that was my start. Because you know what? I didn't know about health food stores. I don't know I know England is always on the cutting edge of I don't know what it is about England, but man, they always had the good stuff at first, and then somehow it just pops into the United States after we start to see it.
That is true. We do seem to have all the good stuff first. Then, unfortunately, where I'm now in Australia, we get it last.
Yeah. I know. It's like, gosh, the UK keeps popping up with stuff like crazy. What is happening over there? You know what I mean? It's like there's something going on. But you have to keep in mind, in 1994, which was when I changed, yes, I was actually kind of embarrassed about being vegetarian. I was embarrassed. I was like almost ashamed in some ways because I couldn't, the way that I grew up just I didn't feel man. I didn't feel it was a manly thing, I think. Just to be completely honest, I just didn't feel it was the manly thing to do. And I think that I thought that I was going to end up being super skinny, which I wouldn't have minded, actually. I thought I was going to be weaker. I thought I was going to be teased. I had all the stereotypes lined up. But you know what? I started to own it. So when I became vegan, I had to own it. When I started to own it, I realized, there's a solution here that the doctors, one of my doctors, she said, She said that I had either Cushing's disease, Addison's disease, or a tumor on my adrenal glands. And I was 295 pounds at the time. And she diagnosed me because I had literally purple stretch marks on my body. And I said, "How do you get rid of this? How do you get rid of this or this tumor on my adrenal gland?" She says, "We have to cut your back open and take out a rib and get into your adrenal gland and take off the what you call it if it's on tumor if it's on my adrenal gland." And I was like, "That's not happening." And that's actually the last time I saw a doctor. I mean, formally for that, I've seen doctors ever since then. But when I was told that somebody had to cut my back open. And then I think I even had hemorrhoids. I was having a whole bunch of issues, and all very invasive issues. And I just didn't want that. I thought if somebody cuts into me, then that's the end of me. My strength will be gone. I will become weaker. And I didn't like that feeling. It made me very insecure as a child, as a growing adult, I guess you could say. If that answers your question.
So I did actually, just because obviously I don't work in pounds. I normally work in stones and stones. So you said it was 295 pounds, wasn't it?
Yeah, 295 pounds. So what does that turn into? In stones?
That is 21 stone 7.
20 stones? I've never heard of that before. Is that a UK thing? English thing?
Yeah, that's very, very UK and Europe.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, why? So we do use kilograms as well, and
kilograms, right?
Pounds these days as well, but it is still very much stone and kilograms, and I'm not too sure why that is. I think that there's quite a few different systems that kind of go around that people use, but I think they're all kind of combining at the moment. But yeah, we're slowly converting to kilograms.
Right? I mean, we should be too. We should have the metric system entirely here. We don't have it. We're screwed up here still. We're screwed up.
Whenever I see it in pounds, I'm never too sure what that is in stone. And now that I've looked it up, that is. So you were quite a heavier kid.
I was not actually a heavy kid. I transformed into a fat kid between 16 and 22. That's when I gained 95 pounds. I was a big, strong, muscular kid, but I was not a fat kid. I was a pretty decent sized kid, but I was not fat. Like I ballooned up. This is, and part of what was happening, I think, with the process of my body was just not stopping the eggs wasn't the full solution. That's why I ended up saying, okay, there was something still wrong. So then I just associated it with all animal products. All animal products were a problem for me. All animal products were a problem for everyone. It's not health food. I always tell people, every time I see posts on Facebook, and we'll have to be Facebook friends, animal products is not a health food. I don't care the dirtiest protein, dirtiest whey, all that stuff is just junk. You know, you may think that it's good for you, but in the long run, it is not good for you at all.
No, I completely understand it, because I get this a lot, especially in the nutrition realm as well, where people are like, have a slab of beef, it's a health food, but it has like various vitamins and minerals in it. But I'm like, it may have all those vitamins and minerals, which is great. It may have the protein, which is great, but it's also combined with many other issues as well. So like you've got your things like cholesterol, and you've got your things that can obviously, do various other bits and pieces inside the body. And like it's combined with various issues that can cause heart disease, that can cause strokes, that can cause cancers. And so, yeah, it may have all those B vitamins, but what are you trading those B vitamins for? Like when you can go, get those vitamins from, a plant source or something like that, but you're trading your health for something just because, you enjoy the taste.
The funny thing is, I always say this to people too. Who needs vitamins? And you call them vitamins. We call them vitamins. Who needs, can I say vitamins? Who needs vitamins or vitamins more than a vegan? Who would need it more? A meat eater should never need vitamins or supplements. None, ever. If they're all like what they say they're getting from all that junk, right? This doesn't make any sense. I'm like, if anybody, vegans need vitamins, but we don't eat. But it's like, I take some supplements sometimes when I get a little nervous because I do not, as a, I hate to admit this, but I eat a lot of sugar. I eat a lot of chocolate. I still eat a lot of my cookies. I love deep fried food still. I think that, and that's part of my issue. I think my issues with stress and everything else that is, that I in my life that I love the most always has some association with food. You know what I mean? Food is my go-to for stress and for love. I just love nachos and chips and salsa, and I love all the standard foods in vegan style, and that's part of. I don't know if it's part of my problem or if it's part of my solution, but I have recently started fasting. When I started to get into fasting, then I started really understanding my mind and my body and the connection of spirituality of the decisions that I've had to make in my past. This happens, Callum, when you get my age. Because I think, how old are you?
So at the moment, I'm 31.
31? Oh my gosh. My gosh. You were just a couple years old when I became vegan.
Yeah, I was about to say, when you became vegan, what was it? It was 1995?
94?
94? Yeah, I was 2.
So funny. It cracks me up. I love the community. I'm so glad I got to meet you. You were one of the people that I was very excited because it's another part of the world, and it just goes to show you that we're everywhere. All the people who have an understanding, the connection in your body and the animal products is happening. Callum, it's because of people like you who are doing these types of things, who I'm so very proud of, because you have to keep in mind, you don't even know how lonely it was for me at the time for all reasons. But I was set in my way. I was just like this. I don't care, fail or succeed in my business and in my life, but I at least I'm going to be healthy. That was one thing I was like, I'm at least going to feel better. I was just glad to be alive and healthy,
No, absolutely, and it is those things that are like that we are doing that does end up changing the perspective of so many people. Obviously, with me, it is very much nutrition, and with you've created various companies as well. You've been showing that you've been doing this for 30 years, and you haven't died from a protein deficiency. You're far from it.
Sure.
And you've created these businesses that you've shown, especially at the time, because when you started the cookie company. That was way before like veganism was really in the mainstream, I guess.
Oh, by far. Vegetarianism was the thing. And then I jumped on, as reluctant as I wanted to, the word vegan, I couldn't stand that word. I hated it. I just thought it was ugly. I just thought, why can't I just be vegetarian? You know what I mean? But it's not. It's like, because, I think vegan is a step greater. You know what I mean? For all of us. So the word has stuck. I mean, I started putting it on my products, and people were giving me kickback. People were like, "No, you shouldn't put that on your products because you're going to turn people off." I'm like, I didn't care. I was like, I don't care. I just want people need to know what they're getting in their food. This is an animal product free food or snack or whatever. What I was at the time was just cookies. And then come to realize in the first 3 years of business, I was approaching almost $1 million in sales in the first 3 years of my business, which I was completely shocked by because it grew so fast, it just went right past me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is way bigger than I thought it was. My understanding was that we were so far and few between. And to be honest with you, in the United States, at the time, it was only 4% vegan. Now, unfortunately, it's only 6% in the United States. I think it's like 90% in the UK because all the good food comes from the UK. Why did you move to Australia? I have no idea. Australia, how
It was
Australia?
the weather.
I know, right? You were tired of being depressed, huh? Yeah, good food, but the weather was killing you, right? How is Australia with the food? with vegan food?
It's really good. It depends where you go. So I'm in Sydney, which is
Okay.
really good. It's got a very big vegan scene. Melbourne, I think, is the third biggest vegan capital in the world, which is
Wow.
probably a 19-hour drive, which is amazing. So down there, but when you go up north or like towards the outback, it's literally just meat pies and nothing else. So it depends where you are. Yeah, but also in outback, there's about 4 people. So every kind of like 300 kilometers. So they're just kind of they're
Wow.
normally like rural farming communities. So you don't really see them much. But yeah, in Sydney, there's a road just around the corner in a place called Newtown, and I think every restaurant down that par of you are vegan.
Do you have any friends there? Do you have any friends? Do you have any friends? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like that's a risk, man, to go all the way over there from the UK. That's a big risk. I mean, wow.
yeah, it was a giant one. Luckily, I knew a few people here already, and then as soon as I got here, you have to go work on a farm for 3 months to be able to stay in the country.
What?
No matter who
You're
you are, so
kidding
they
me.
kind of stuck me on a banana farm, and obviously you meet a
What?
load of people there, and yeah.
What? Is that mandatory?
It's not mandatory anymore for English people, but it was. But for
Wow.
every other nationality, it's a mandatory thing. So yeah, I got stuck on a farm with people from every different culture, which was amazing to see because obviously you're hanging around people and obviously taking in a lot from each culture. Um,
Wow.
However, yeah, you're stuck on a different farm. So I was on a banana farm for 3 months. So we're doing bananas, papayas, and dragon fruit.
Wow. And tarantulas too, right? And there's
Yeah, oh,
are the
yeah. There
spiders.
were spiders, snakes, bats, possums, anything that you could think of that could come out of a banana comes out of a banana. I don't eat bananas anymore.
I'd be scared of bananas at that point. I love bananas too. That's
Yeah, see,
funny.
I love bananas to pieces, but ever since I worked on there, like I still love the taste, but I think PTSD maybe more than anything.
I'm sure of it. I'm sure, did you see the pesticides? They probably spray a lot of pesticides on those things too, right?
Yeah, there's these like mini planes that go over spraying like this white dust all over them, and obviously when you pull down that bag you get a lot of that dust into your face, and I'm like, oh, it's fine, like you can breathe that in, you're not going to die. But I'm like pretty sure breathing enough of anything that color and that powder is not great for you as much as they say
Right.
it is.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a lot. It was hard days of just kind of wrangling bananas, I guess,
A
and
hard three
trying not to get
months.
eaten by a snake or being bitten by a spider. Or some of the farms had crocodiles near them, so luckily I wasn't on that one.
So
But I
worth
know
it.
a few
So
people.
worth it, right?
Luckily, now that I've gone through all that, I can now
Yeah.
kind of relax, and I'm happy I can chill by the beach, like enjoy real good food and just kind of enjoy it. However, other
How long you been
nationalities,
there?
if they want to stay a third year, they have to do another
Oh.
6 months on that farm.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding me. How long have you been there for?
So I've been here now. I got here 2022 October 2022. So I
Wow,
actually
that's
I flew there from California, where I think you are at the moment.
right. Why did you become vegan?
Why did I become vegan? It was very much animal ethics at first.
Really? Wow.
I was very much into. I always kind of knew what was going on, and from a very young age, I was kind of I was aware, and I did want to become vegetarian at first, and I tried a few times. But when you're young, you also go along and just you go out with friends, and you're like, oh, I'll have like a piece of chicken that and
Yeah.
that day, and then I kind of then developed into vegetarian later on down the line. Didn't really think anything of it. I was like, I'm saving animals, but obviously you don't really think about the egg industry, the milk industry, or the dairy.
Yeah.
Um, so I was very vegetarian, slightly pescatarian, cut out the fish, and then also became very lactose intolerant as well, which most of us are. So cut out the the dairy, and then
Right.
it was very much eggs, and I wasn't a huge fan of eggs anyway. And then obviously found out a lot more about what was going on, and then in all these industries, and I was like, overnight, just kind of like cut out anything else that's there that I need to cut out, and just go completely vegan from then on.
That's amazing.
So yeah, there was animal ethics, and then that's when I dived into nutrition because, like, I think when you go vegan, sometimes you get into that very angry stage.
I was
You
angry.
just
Yeah.
yeah, you just kind of
So pissed.
and I still am on a day-to-day basis of the things that you
Me
hear and
too.
find out.
Even 30 years
But I
later,
think
Callum.
yeah, it's one of those. It never leaves. It never leaves at all.
I'm using it for the positive, though. I mean, I want to use it for the positive, but boy, I am. It's
Exactly that.
disgusting every day.
Exactly that. And like in my head, like I'd love to go stand there with like the billboards and that, but also I don't like confrontation too
Right?
much. So I was
Yeah.
like, I want to do something, but want to do something that's positive as well, that's going to help. So that's when I dived into nutrition, and that's how this whole the whole nutrition side of me started. Where I'm vegan for the animals, however, plant based for health, and just so I can work those both together to kind of create a very harmonious way of trying to lead by example and
Yeah.
show that you can eat plants and be healthy and fit, and you can
Yeah.
still eat plants, be vegan, and look after the animals.
And you have quite a few group of people that you kind of are around that are kind of used to your ways. Are you happy with the company that you keep in your town or where you are?
Yeah, I think like especially who I keep around me is a big deal. Luckily, obviously, I found a community online where I do my business. But however, in my day-to-day life, my two roommates here, vegan. A lot of the friends that I make are vegan, and that's not intentionally. That just seems to be who's brought in to my life at that point, and it just kind of
Right.
works that way. So even back home in England, my group of friends were either vegan or vegetarian or very open-minded and would eat
Yeah.
vegan or vegetarian. But I've never had really any friends that have kind of pushed back against that. So I think I've
Right.
managed to choose quite good ones without the intention.
It's just one of those things. I think I didn't have, it was like no, friendless, man. It became the waters parted, and not my family didn't want to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it because, like I said, it's a personal choice. When you make these types of personal choices, then you lose friends. This is it for you. This is all. I mean, this is they're gone. They're like, oh, you don't eat cheese? Oh, well, don't take my cheese away, or don't tell me that I shouldn't eat cheese. But, a lot of my family still does. I have a huge family on both sides, but they've come and they go. They just they'll end up dying unhealthy, unfortunately. And I've done my best. So my thing is, and I think should be with all of us as vegans, is we plant the seed, we water it from time to time, we be the example, like you said, and you just have to stay positive. And you've done your job. You've done what you needed to do. You can't force people your way. And I think that when first became vegan, I was very crazy about it. I was so, and I think that it was probably, then I started to realize nobody wanted to hear it. And I was just like, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to be that guy. That one guy who comes to the family picnic with hummus, you know what I mean? And lentils. And cookies, too,
So your diet when you were younger, because I think I read somewhere or I listened to it on a podcast maybe, because like I did do as much research on you as possible.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it was a very traditional Mexican diet
Oh,
when you were
man.
younger.
Don't get me started. It was delicious. By all means, it was delicious. I don't. I think that's part of the problem of what happens when we transition mentally. It's a game. It becomes a game in your mind. What you're going to lose. What's not. What's going to happen? Oh my gosh! I'm not going to have the chorizo that I had, the tacos that I had, the quesadillas that I had. All that stuff is just like, oh gosh, I'm going to miss all this stuff. But you know what? It's been 30 years, and I've made it up. I've made it up. Believe me, there's plenty of foods now, all the cheeses. But I think that every time something new came out, I had to try it. So yes, my diet was traditional Mexican diet, bean burritos, rice, carnitas, the steak and chicken all day, every day. Then I think I transformed into McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken were probably my two favorites. And Kentucky chicken nuggets when they came around. I just went batty, and I think that was definitely part of my problem was overconsumption of animal products, not just the animal products, but the I was overeating them because I was just like, I think when you grow up poor, I grew up very poor. So we couldn't eat out like we wanted to. I think that when you have something you take along with you throughout your life that tends to overeat or tends to overbuy food because it's a mental thing. It's a mental thing. You have to get away from that mentality of the food will still be there. You know what I mean? I even tell that I have a child who's 14. We don't really fight over food. But I think we kind of used to, sort of. And I think I used to be a little bit of a different person before I fasted. I started fasting. Now I realize in the last 3 years, I always tell her now, look, they'll make more. If you want more food, it's going to be okay. So I had to step back and start to control myself because I have a food addiction. So in some ways, it's a sugar addiction with food addiction. And I only think it's because of the way I grew up. And I was eating, eggs and bacon and, mixing it all together, hash browns. I had cheese and everything. It was a delicious world, so to speak, but it was killing me,
I was about to, I was actually in Mexico 2 years ago now, for a month or so, and the food over there is delicious, but it is now becoming, from what I saw in certain places, was becoming slightly more vegan friendly in certain places with certain foods, which was beautiful because when I first got there, I had this preconception that obviously there's not much I'm going to be able to eat.
Right.
However, I got there and there was such good food there, Mexican food being one of my favorites. And when I got there, just the options that I managed to get as well, I was like, this is incredible. I am mind blown by flavors, everything like that. It was
right. It's wonderful. I mean, that's just it. And that's the thing I thought I was going to miss. I thought I was going to miss all these things, but you know what? We have it all now. I think it's taken some time. We have a Trader Joe's here. Do you know what a Trader Joe's is?
I do, yeah.
We have a Trader Joe's. You have VHS there? I'm just joking. VHS.
I don't think we don't have VHS. We don't have Trader Joe's here, but I've been to a Trader Joe's in the States because I was like, I kept seeing videos of Trader Joe's online. I'm like, I want to go to one of these. I don't know why I wanted to go to one of those so much, but I wanted to, and I got someone that I knew to take me to a Trader Joe's, and I don't know if I was overwhelmed or underwhelmed. It was both beautiful. Right? At the same time, just a shopping, just a shop at the same time.
I don't know if you ever go to Los Angeles, but they have full menus with everything vegan on these 2-3 pages of menus of food, and it's just like I just want to order everything, man. I feel like I've been so deprived for so long for all these new things that are coming up and coming. In fact, there's a show called It's a Natural Products Expo in California that they have it on both the East and West Coast. But it's coming up in March, and it is like a kid in a candy store, man, for a vegan, because all the new vegan stuff is coming up, and it's just junk galore. So you have to. I have an issue with control, and sugar and chocolate are my two weaknesses. And sugar, chocolate, chips, and salsa with guacamole are my weaknesses. And so when I'm around those, it's not good. But I've been trying to get better control over myself, and that's part of being vegan. It's like, okay, you got to get, and that was part of actually my problem trying to become vegan was I started to realize how lack of control I had when I was driving up to the drive-through for Kentucky Fried Chicken and over-ordering. You know what I mean? I'm an over-order.
Oh, I'm still to this day exactly the same, and I think I will get to a place where there's a lot on the menu, and I'm like, I want everything.
Oh,
However, I know I can't have everything, but at least I can maybe order this and then quite a few more little sides as well. Or if I was to go to a drive, but over here there's a place called Lord of the Fries, and
oh, I
it's
think
it
I've
is
heard of
vegan
that.
fast food,
I've
and
heard of that.
it's incredible. Like the food is unreal. Like you got your burgers, you got your nugs, you got your like they even have like little chicken wings and stuff like that.
Wow.
Everything completely vegan. However, when I'm there, I'm like, it's once in a while I'm there when I'm feeling like, I'm going to treat myself. And then I get there, I'm like, I only need chips and one thing, but there's
Right.
so much on the menu. I'm like, oh, like just add that and that and that, and then I've consumed it all, and I do not feel great afterwards. I'm like,
I know,
I
right?
should not have done that, but
I know.
at
You
that
know what?
time, it's just there that I'm like, I need.
I know. Well, now what I do, Callum, is I and this is kind of funny, and you're going to recognize this when I tell you this. I now look at the table to see if it's big enough to carry everything that I want. This table's too small. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be able to fit all the stuff I want on this table. Give me another table. That's how it is for me now. That's what it's become. Okay, it's become like then I start to rationalize. Oh, I'll just take some home. You know what I mean? Even though I don't eat a lot of leftovers all the time, but I'll just take whatever I don't eat. I can always eat later. You know what I mean? That's how I rationalize it now.
Exactly that.
It's funny.
So
Tables.
is that where obviously with the we're being overindulgent? Is this where cookies came in? Is this why cookies were the one for you and it wasn't another kind of
Yes.
food or product?
No. I wish it would have been pencils, Callum. To be honest with you, but it's not.
That wouldn't sell as well.
I wouldn't have been eating as many. I'll tell you that much, right? So, and I have to tell you, the funny thing is that I always tell this to people is that you're probably looking at the one person who's eaten more cookies than anybody you know. Because I was probably at one time eating about 800 cookies a year. So I had to do the calculation. So as a child, I think I started. I loved. I don't know if you know this Pillsbury Chub, the tubes, the Pillsbury. So I used to be obsessed over
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
I used to bake and cook as a child like crazy. But this is my obsession with food, and my it's just a weird thing. I think just because I grew up poor, like I said. But yes, and then what happened was when I stopped eating eggs, then I had to have a funeral in my mind that said, I'm giving up cookies, and I'm giving up cake, I'm giving up muffins, I'm giving all this up. You really, it's almost like, it's sort of a funeral in your mind, sort of like you're just like, okay, this is it. So when I discovered a cookie at the Sacramento Natural Foods Co-op, where I finally somebody said, go to the co-op, co-ops, they're natural foods co-op. I was like, oh, okay. I just happened to be looking for soy milk or something, and then I found a cookie with no eggs in it, and it was the most. I bought them all. I bought them all. Not only did I buy them all, I got a job there to learn how to make them. That's exactly how it got started. That's how obsessed I was because oh my gosh, I gotta have these cookies every day. So I learned I got a job there because I just quit. It was the end of the Iraqi war, and I sold all my construction equipment. I was formerly a drywall contractor. I sold everything. It was like I was losing money. People weren't paying me. Housing crashed. It was a whole big ordeal. But I had enough money saved up um, to take some time off. So then I said, but when I was running out of money, I was like, I got to get a job. So it was a perfect opportunity to get a job at the co-op, SAC co-op, to learn. And somebody taught me how to bake vegan, but the problem was that it would only last 2 or 3 or 4 days, these cookies. So I ended up having to really dive in and figure out how to extend the shelf life to be better, because it was like I wanted to make these cookies, but I didn't want to make them every day. So I worked there, and I learned once I learned how to bake the base of it. Then from there, I just started experimenting on moisture level, sugar level, everything else level. And then I realized, gosh, I actually ended up having a cookie that ended up being up to a year. It was really quite interesting, just the science of it, because just by reading the science of it, and that's my inquisitive mind. My inquisitive mind was like, how am I going to make it? That was a challenge. How am I going to make this last? Because, I don't want to keep making this. I want to make a dozen or 2 dozen cookies and then eat them every week. And I had just like indulged, and that was that's just like our indulgence. It's the character that we have was like, I needed to have these cookies all the time. I had not had a cookie in 7 years. I had not had a cookie, anything with eggs in it in 7 years. So then I started making cakes, muffins. I just went nuts. So it's because of our indulgent personality, which it's a both curse and a blessing at the same time, Callum, I'll tell you. But it works. I'm good now. I'm happier now than I've ever been learning about my digestive system. And that's, I started out with wheat cookies. Wheat was really the only thing that I knew of. And then I think maybe 10 years, 15 years later, I started realizing all those cookies that I was eating. I was like, oh my gosh, these cookies, are not, and the amount that I was eating them was not healthy for me. In the amount that I was eating them. Okay, keep that in mind. So I realized I got to switch to oat flour or a gluten-free flour. So I messed with pinto bean flour and rice flour. I did that for a while until finally oat flour started coming out that was gluten-free. And then I switched. Now I'm all 100% oat flour for the most part, but I do make some wheat stuff.
So with obviously once you've created all these cookies, and you've learned how to bake the cookies as well, how long was it until it then took off? Because you've learned to bake these cookies in the co-op, and then all of a sudden you've got this giant business selling cookies and making like $1 million in sales.
Yeah, it took
sales.
Yeah, sales. It took on a life of its own that I had no idea could even exist or happen, because I was doing like 30 a week, 50, 60 a week. I was out selling it myself. I was knocking on doors, gas stations, anybody who would take me. And believe me, and the competition that I had were these giant $1 cookies. I don't know if you've ever seen them in stores. They were like eggs and butter, and I was like, it's gonna be an uphill battle to try to compete against that. But I said I didn't care. I was going to do it anyway. So it took thousands a week. It went from thousands a week to thousands a week, and then and by the end of the third year that I was there, before I left my first bakery, then we were doing about almost $1 million, about 994,000 or something, so close to $1 million in sales for the year. And that's when I left my first company, and then I started Sunflower Baking Company, because I was determined to keep going. I didn't want to stop, but I couldn't get along with the ethics of the guy who I got into partners with, because he was not a vegan. So for me, it was just like it's all or none for me. I don't care. I didn't care. I mean, I'm very staunch about my veganism, so much so I pretty much just left my first company because I could not stand the people anymore. I could not stand who they were, what they were representing, continuing to eat fish, and I didn't want anything to do with it. That's how staunch I was. I was like, I don't want anything to do with animal products. And it's just like when I became vegan, when that light went off in my head, I took every leather thing I had and put it out for sale on my lawn, like the next weekend. I was like, my belts, my couches, my boots, my shoes, anything that was leather, I didn't want anything to do with animal products. And it's funny because you had done it for the ethics of animals. I did not do it for that reason. Those are the two reasons why people do it. It's for health or for the ethics of animals. It only took me about 2 to 3 years to finally understand the connection of it all. And I think that just made me even more mad, because the abuse, people would send me like a video at the time, the VHS, on tape, and we would look at it on tape. People were sending me VHS tapes, like, you should see the abuse. You should see how they milk cows. You should see how they slaughter animals. And I don't want to see that. I didn't want to see that. I was in complete denial. And we are in denial of seeing how your food is made. You're in denial of it, And I was like, I didn't want to see it either. But I ended up realizing it's part of the package, man. When you become vegan, it's part of the package.
Yeah, it is one of those things where no matter what reason you go in for, you always end up learning along the way, and then
Yep.
it then becomes part of your life. Like I know a lot of people that did go vegan for
Yep.
health reasons. However,
That'd be me.
later on down the line, they found out so much more, and now they're very activist people.
Oh yeah. I've given away millions of cookies just to make my point. Millions. Just so I could make people understand that you don't eat eggs in cookies and dairy.
As well, I think like especially like when you started creating these cookies as well, then there were obviously people with allergies to like milk and butter and eggs
Yeah.
as well, and you're
Right.
really accommodating to those people as well, even if they're not vegan. Like you're accommodating people with various allergies, which most companies don't do. It's either
Right.
vegan or nothing, or
Right.
sometimes you'll get like maybe egg free. But at that point, you are accommodating for not only vegans. Well, back then there wasn't as many, but also there's also people with certain types of allergies that can't have like that enjoy cookies but don't want the issues they get with like the butter or
Oh
like
yeah.
the rashes they might get with eggs and stuff as well. So you've kind of tapped into like a minority market that's worked so well for you as well.
Yeah. No, it's been completely amazing. I think every day now that I see all you type of people who are doing this with this pot and spreading the word all over the world, man, I'm flabbergasted, and it almost makes me emotional to have this realization that people like yourself care enough to talk about it and to open up about it, aren't shy about it, aren't worried about what people think. That is you. I can't even words can't even almost I can't even come up with the words to describe the feeling that it gives me and joy and the power that it empowers me to like I'm going to do more. And that's kind of the funny thing was I started this podcast journey because I kind of felt like when I heard it was only 6% in the United States, I kind of thought, gosh, damn, I haven't been doing enough. I thought I still was not doing enough, you know? And I think that I'm thinking, oh my gosh, but now I'm meeting people like you who are all over the world. And it's just mind boggling to think I would never have thought that I'd be sitting here 30 years from, 30 years ago that I'd be talking to somebody who's English in Australia. You know what I mean? you know, but I'm so grateful for you.
Yeah,
I'm so grateful.
thank you. I'm also grateful for you because I feel like without you back in the day doing some of these things, a lot of things wouldn't have moved on how they have done nowadays either. So that obviously
Yeah.
becoming a pioneer of it back in the day is elevated because even the smallest things that people do obviously later on down the line make huge impacts. And without
Oh
people
yeah.
like you doing what you were doing at the time, who knows what it will be like today in this kind of world.
Yes, I've heard many people have. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but many people have said how grateful, and I've inspired them to be vegan, or I've inspired them to open up a company or try harder, and that's why I started that website, startaveganbusiness.com. I just started it because I want people to reach out to me who are trying to be vegan or try to do something vegan. I'm happy to give some advice to someone who needs a resource, because it's ongoing. It's who I am now. I'm never going to leave this position. I'm never going to go back, and I want only others to be inspired. This is exactly why I'm doing this.
That's just it. Like it is, especially with like the amount of things that you're doing as well. You've got so many resources for people to learn as well. So obviously you've got your how to start a vegan business. You've got your
Yeah,
cookies. You had a vegan restaurant at one point, didn't you?
yeah. I
It
had
was
for
Garden to
five
Grill.
years. 5 years. It was. How do I describe it? I always describe it like that business would be perfect if it weren't for the customers and the employees. That business would be perfect. And that the joke is the joke is the food was perfect. The food was great, but it was hard. I walked into this. I inherited 13 employees. I fired most of them and then rehired a bunch. But boy, I'll tell you, it was a very jolting to my character, to my, because, you have to deal with everything, not just, people complaining about the price of vegan food. People complain about that. I had that, and I had to deal with that. And then, but, I was very happy and proud of, I wish I could, I would say, I wish I could kind of do it again, but in a different place. Because I was just paying way too much rent. I was paying like $6,000 a month for a huge space that I didn't even use. And it would have been more successful if I would have had a better spot. I think it was in an old Victorian home, and it just didn't work out for me the way I wanted to. And then I wanted to kind of go back to my bakery, and then and continue to do that. It was a lot more peaceful, a lot less hassle with people and customers. I was less in touch with. I'm not the perfect people person, but I try to help everybody. But it just becomes difficult when you're trying to have two businesses at the same time. It becomes rough. Vegan businesses.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely like even just like running a business on its own is hard enough without obviously running various. Like sometimes I get overrun with my own, which is great. However, it's just sometimes very overwhelming because I also have this thing where I can't say no to things sometimes, so I kind of overwhelm myself with so many different aspects of the job to the point that I'm just like, some days I will just get very, very run down, but out of my own fault. I go around, I help people to.
That's good.
Obviously,
I
get
love
as
that.
healthy as they can.
Yeah, that's good, but don't take away their cheese. They're gonna not like you if you try to take away their cheese. Okay, they'll drop you like a hot potato. Don't take the cheese away, man. Funny.
So I am going to wrap this up in a second.
Yeah.
However, I do have one last quick question I ask all my guests on here.
Sure.
So you come home, it's been a long day. You want to make something quick, simple, but somewhat slightly healthy. It doesn't have to be the healthiest. What are you making?
That's a hard question, believe it or not, strangely. I end up, you know what I do? I end up actually just popping open a can of vegan soup and just eating it straight out of the can. That's what I do. I know it's strange. And then some bread and hummus, man. And I'm happy. I'm happy, man. That just makes my day.
I mean, sometimes simpler is best.
Sometimes. I eat out a lot too, but that's my easy go-to when I'm tired.
Yeah, I think throughout everybody that I've spoken to, or asked that question to, even like physicians and other like dietitians and nutritionists, and that they've already had like answers that I didn't think we would have. Some have just been dark chocolate.
That's funny. That's funny. We're all different.
Well, at least you didn't say a cookie either. I did assume it might have been a cookie.
That's all day, Callum. That's all day, man. Okay. That happens all day. Look, I got cookies on my desk all the time, man. You know what I mean? There's always cookies. I'm always having. It's a shame, man. It's almost a shame. But just people always ask me, "Do you get sick of cookies?" No, I do not get sick of cookies. I do not get sick of them.
I think it's hard to get sick of something that you really, really love when it comes to food. But there's still foods that I have on a weekly basis on rotation. Sometimes more.
Right.
More than 3 or 4 times a week, and I've never got sick of them.
I know. Peanut butter is probably one of my go-tos too. Peanut butter, I love.
Oh no, I absolutely love peanut butter. It's literally on my morning breakfast, in my smoothie, everything. It's just
I don't buy it. I don't buy it anymore. I'll eat the whole pound. You know, I stopped buying it. I have 25-pound pails in my bakery. Okay. Can you imagine having to live with that? Okay, it's not easy. Okay.
I love that. So, Ray, where can we find you?
You can find me at startaveganbusiness.com, and you can see where you buy my cookies, Amazon. I don't know. In the United States, of course, I'm not in Australia yet, and someday maybe I will be. And even the UK, I've been kind of working on. Canada, I'm working on too. But for the most part, find startaveganbusiness.com is where you'll see everything about me, including this podcast. You'll once we get it done and you publish, and we're going to put this on there too.
Perfect. I love that. Thank you, Ray. I'm so grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you, Callum.